Board of Zoning and Building Appeals meeting for the city of North Ridgeville. Will you please take the roll call?
Kane excused, Ali excused, Kimball,
Yes.
Thibodeau,
Here.
Masterson,
Here.
members of the administration, council liaison Winkle,
Here.
chief building official Fursden,
Here.
assistant law director Morgan, planning and development director Lieber.
We will rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. So I'm looking for a approval of the minutes. Anybody have any comments in regards to the minutes? Hearing none, accept as presented. Do we have a planning commission report?
Not at this time.
Mr. Fursden, did you want to give us one? Okay.
I believe the meeting was canceled. There were no applications.
Okay. Any other reports or correspondence? Neil?
North Ridgeville Steering Committee, we just had our pop-up meeting July 20th at the Senior Center. It was a great success. I can lean on Mrs. Lieber for the next August meeting. I'm not exactly sure what day that is.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We don't yet have a
Okay.
date of our next steering committee meeting, but we're still synthesizing all that input we got. We had hundreds of people attend, so it was great.
Yay. Okay. So that's master. Did anybody want to speak in regards to the zoning amendments? I don't know which one is.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. City Council recently adopted 2 updates to our zoning code that are pretty significant. We'll have a new sign code in effect by mid-end of August, and also our non-conforming structures and uses chapter's been updated. So I'd like to reserve some time on your August agenda to go over what those changes are and how that might impact some of your future reviews.
Okay. That sounds like a really good idea.
Great.
Like
Thank
15, 20 minutes?
Yes.
Okay. Sounds great. All right. Now we will move to the public hearings.
Applicant number 1, PPZ 2023-0199, Thomas Holsful, 5122 Stony Ridge Road, PPN 07-000-031-000-004. Applicant Thomas Holsful. Proposal consists of constructing a detached garage. Property is zoned R1 Residence District. Requests 1, a 1.5-foot height variance for a detached private garage. Code permits 15 feet. Applicant shows 16.5 feet. Section 1294.03 D1. See definition of building height below. Number 2, a 2.2 variance for lot coverage of a residential lot with a detached garage. Code permits 10%. Applicant shows 12.2%. Section 1294.03 D2.
Okay, is there anybody here to speak on this matter? Do you want to go to the podium and raise your hand so I can swear you in? Okay, do you swear or affirm that the statements you are about to make before this zoning and board of appeals for the city of North Ridgeville are true as you shall answer unto God or under the penalties of the law of perjury?
I do.
Okay, state your name.
Thomas Holzapfel,
Okay, and your address, sir?
5122 Stony Ridge Road.
Okay. You want to present your case again?
Sure. So I assume all the zoning folks got a updated survey with the stamp from the surveyor
Correct.
to definitively plot where the house actually is, that it's not over the lot line. He did find the pins, did mark out the house on it as it lays, which we discussed last time, and I was to get a survey to show kind of where it was. The house itself that's close to the lot line is, I think, 1940, so it's been there a very long time. The addition that was not done by me, but the previous owner, is much farther away from the lot line, as you can see on the drawing. And the location of the detached garage would be in compliance with, you know, the code as far as off of the lot line. I think I have it set at 5.5 feet. I also spoke with the building department about the space between the home and the neighbor, which is my daughter, but the amount of space there is actually 13.5 feet, and they said you're allowed to pave up to your home and up to the property line, so there's no issue at all as far as clearance for a driveway from what I was told. And I walked the actual space with Joe Lenahan and showed him where the property line was, so he put eyes on it, and there was a second survey done by the neighbor which actually verified that lot line. A surveyor came out and verified what my surveyor, he came to the same conclusion, he marked it, and so both surveyors were in agreement. Last thing I just wanted to mention, Stony Ridge Road, I'm sure you're all familiar with, is a very busy road. People don't walk up and down that road because of the heavy traffic. The lot directly across, all the lots surrounding my home are large lots. The smallest lot, which 2 lots that are kind of catty corner across the street, are 0.93 acres. Directly across the street is 4.5 acres. Next to me is my daughter, 1.5 acres. The next lot over is 2 acres. The next lot over is 5.7 acres. So they're all really big lots. They're all, it has a real rural feel to where that part of the town is. So I don't, where the garage will be constructed is going to be virtually out of sight from the road. It's not going to be, it's going to be a nice looking structure, but it's not going to be very visible. So.
Okay, so you did give us a picture of the driveway, and the driveway does show that, shows the pin and does show that the driveway is on the other property. I mean, it's just a corner of it.
Well, after, with the new survey, it's even wider there than we originally thought, so.
I'm just talking about in the
Oh,
front.
yeah. That was not me, that was,
Okay.
that was the prior owner. I didn't have anything to do with that. That was not under my,
Okay. Mr. Furston, he said that he can put a driveway next to the house. Is that correct?
Yes, it can go right up against the house. A lot of driveways do.
Okay. Thank you very much for giving us a rundown of all the adjacent properties. However, we're here addressing your property.
sure.
We are well familiar with your property because of the situation that your property has. The structure was up in front of our board. We granted, because of the unique character of this property, a carport. The law department determined that we weren't clear in our determination of a carport, so they allowed you to enclose that.
Yes,
When I was on the board, there always is a saying, no good deed goes unpunished. We granted the variance due to the inability to put a barn behind this house. I have, unless you can give me a really good reason why you need additional variances we're talking about the garage needing variances. Have you tried any other alternatives to make the structure smaller?
well, obviously I could make the garage smaller and comply, but again, I guess my appeal is everybody around me is large, all the lots are large, the many large structures on the large properties. It would just help accommodate, I guess in my mind, and just throw this out for you guys to think, and I've talked with other area like Sheffield Village. The perspective I was hoping was, I'm gonna build something nice, it'll increase property taxes, which cities like, obviously. It'll help me put undercover, things like vehicles and mowers and all that You know, nobody likes to drive by homes and see a lot of stuff sitting around buildings, and it would just give me a greater capacity to put things undercover, keep the property neat and tidy.
Okay, so the Board of Zoning and Appeals, we look at each individual application individually. So we're looking for hardship.
I mean, I guess my appeal is I'm trying to build a nice structure on an acre property. I didn't think a little bit bigger garage was a big ask. I mean, I guess I have I have 3 vehicles. I have a trailer, I have mowers. And if I don't have a larger garage, I obviously will have to set some of those things outside the building, which most people would prefer to see them out of sight.
Anybody else have any other questions, comments, or concerns?
Just a comment. From our last meeting, I do appreciate you going out and get the additional surveys. You said your neighbor also did, just to make sure, verify. I do appreciate that. It's much more clear
Yep.
than it was last time.
Sean, do you have any comments?
Not at this time. Actually, yes, I do have one, if that's okay, Madam.
Sure.
I suppose it's a question for the law department. How was the determination made that he was allowed to enclose the carport that or the property was previously here for? I mean, it was a few years ago, but. Okay.
Madam Chair, I have a little bit more of a recollection of this because there was an application made last summer, I believe. And it was on your agenda, and then it was withdrawn. And I believe the advice at the time was because the motion of the board didn't specifically limit that variance to a carport. That there was some discussion in the meeting, but it wasn't clear that in the motion that it was simply being granted for a carport, not a garage.
So who made that determination, I guess is my question.
Again, I don't know. I'd have to look it up. I know we recently had an issue regarding a carport, and we still do not have good language in our ordinance making a difference between the two. So they're often treated as the same thing. So that might have been the basis of it, but I'd have to look at it. I could not tell you. I don't have any recollection at all. I can get that information for you if for another meeting, or if I'd known
Actually,
this time.
I would like that, just because we also did have that carport that was up in front of us a couple.
It will be back. Yeah.
Okay, it will be back, because I know that I spoke with Chief Building Official first and in regards to this, and I asked specifically why something that we approved as a carport was suddenly enclosed by a garage, and I was told that it was determined by the law department, and Kim Lieber's stating that.
Can I ask a question? Is
Sure.
that going determinative for you on this application?
Yes.
That's in front of you here and now?
Yes, because
Well,
it
sorry,
is
go ahead.
for me, because the hardship was originally that they couldn't put a garage behind this structure due to the size of the lot. So they asked for the ability to put a carport in the front of this house because they were unable to put a garage behind the house. Am I misinterpreting that?
Yeah,
If
again,
anybody has anything to say, please do.
I'd have to look at it. I do not have,
I don't remember that
recall it.
language. Obviously, with this size lot, there's plenty of room to put a garage behind the house. I don't know why they would have said that.
Do you
Well,
remember, Sean?
my recollection wasn't so much that they could not, but whoever made the application, I don't know if it was you, sir, or somebody else, specifically said that they had no intention of building a garage behind the house, and that's why they wanted the carport. And either myself or you, or maybe even both of us, pointed out that with the carport, there was no visible obstruction by building in front towards the road. And I mean, they were specifically asking for a carport. It just feels like there was definitely some deception there. And I don't know exactly how we got to this point today from where we were just a couple years ago.
And do we know?
And I will say, just to answer your question separately from Linda, it has zero bearing on my decision tonight.
Okay.
2 different cases.
Yeah, I
But
do.
I do,
Do we know when it was enclosed then? If you approved it, say, a year ago?
it was approved probably, I would guess, 2 to 3 years ago as
Okay.
specifically as
And-
a carport, not as a garage.
Do we know when it became a garage?
Sir, do you remember when you tried to pull the building permit for the garage? Or-
Yeah, I think it was somewhere around a year ago. I don't have that in front of me, but somewhere in that neighborhood. Of course, the carport predated me as the owner and
Okay.
the structure, everything. That was.
But you were the one that enclosed it into a garage.
Right. Well, I started to, and then I was notified I couldn't do that. I had to make application, which I did. And so I stopped. I just did a beginning on an enclosure and then made the appeal, and the appeal was approved.
Through
And
the
so
law
I enclosed.
department, because it got pulled.
I would mention too, it's a 3,500 square foot home with a one-car garage. It's a pretty strange, situation as far as a home with just one little garage in the front. And there is as we can see, 13 and a half feet to get around the house, so there's plenty of room for a driveway past a home.
So, sir, were you the gentleman that came in front of the board years ago specifically for the carport? So
No.
that was somebody else.
Yeah.
So that was before you were even
Yeah.
a part of the picture.
Yep.
Okay.
Madam Chair, if I could shed some light, the minutes from February 2020, I think were included, if not in this packet, in the last packet. So there was discussion that the applicant at the time was John Fail, an architect, and the owner was present as well. Mr. Katura, is that how you say his name?
Okay.
Stated that they would ideally like to build a garage. He explained their decision to construct the carport was because the architect said there was no way a garage would be approved since it would come too close to the street. There was no place for a garage unless it was built in the back. He indicated this was not financially possible at this time. Vice Chairwoman Masterson spoke about the house that was being built next door. She felt Mr. Katura would have difficulty putting in a driveway to lead to a garage at the back of the property. The applicant stated he'd not be able to do any type of concrete driveway because of the 11 and a half feet on the one side, which would be pretty tight. He didn't know if he would ever be able to have a garage in the back, which was his reason for requesting a carport. It would provide coverage for at least one of the cars. So there is some discussion that the board had at the time. And I don't know if it was directly stated by the applicant that they couldn't get a garage in the back, but that it didn't seem financially feasible at the time to do so.
And to be clear, that was a different applicant.
That is correct, but it's.
Different owner, same
But-
property, yes,
The variance goes with the property,
yes.
always.
And the request was, for front yard setback, but there was no language in the motion or in the request that it was limited to a carport. It was just a front setback. So, once the setback variance is granted, it's whatever portion of that structure would be built would be within that variance. That's why specificity is important.
So, Madam Chair, if this is going to if the other determination is going to make a difference on how you view this one, I would request the time to look at it on your behalf. And if not, then you can go forward with this one. But if it influences your decision, then you're going to need all the
Well,
information
actually-
in front of you.
Ms. Lieber did a good job, so that is what I was looking for.
Okay.
I'm looking for hardship.
I guess my appeal is I'm trying to build a very nice home in North Ridgeville that is a 5-bedroom home. and to have a one-car garage on a five-bedroom home, you know, would be highly unusual and not very conducive to the home, obviously. And so, you know, many homes have larger garages to accommodate, you know, the size of the structure and the size of the home. And I guess my appeal is I'm just trying to build a nice garage facility, again,
The
to
garage
put-
you're talking about building is 1,800 square feet approximately.
Correct.
And have you looked at a smaller structure? I
Obvious-
guess I'm trying, you're not giving me a practical
I
difficulty.
have a large pickup truck, I have a large trailer, I have another car, and I have 2 riding mowers and other things that, you know, the garage size that's permitted, they will not be inside. They couldn't get all that in, so.
And your garage has an overhang in the back too.
Right, and that's part of that 1,800 square foot, that it's not under, I mean, it's just a roof. It's not part of the actual structure. I mean, it's part of the structure, but not enclosed.
Why do you need it to be so tall?
Well, just because it was I mean, if shorter helps, I'd do shorter. I mean, it's just less pitch on a roof, so roofs tend to wear out more if they're a lower pitch. But if that was a determining, I'd be happy to do the compliance on the height.
Okay, so I have another question of the law department. Would we do this since they're asking for 2 variances? Would we split the variances and vote on them individually?
I'm always in favor of that. That gives you the opportunity to say yes on one, no on another, if that's how you view it. So I prefer that, yes, please.
I understand where you're coming from. I appreciate what you did. A 2.2% variance for lot coverage is not a lot, and that's reasonable. I just don't understand. You haven't provided me with enough practical difficulty. I understand what you're coming from and an aesthetic, but I just wanted you to know that's where my decision is coming from. Does anybody else have any other questions? Anybody in the audience want to speak on behalf of this matter? If you want to come up, you're going to have to come up, and I'm going to have to swear you in. Hi. Do you swear or affirm that the statements you are about to make before this zoning and building board of appeals for the city of North Ridgeville are true as you shall answer unto God or under the penalties of the law of perjury?
I do.
And your name?
My name is John Evanson. I live at 39093. I got a little horse.
It's okay.
Case
Sure.
Road, and that's in Avon, Ohio.
Okay.
I happen to own the property, though, to the north of this property.
Okay.
The 1.3 acres, what have you. I think my biggest concern now is, and it's not really dedicated only to the variances being asked, but the property line seems to be this demarcation line that shouldn't be crossed over or affected by, but it seems like that's where we're at today. I noticed up here we've got 2.7 feet to the property line. I didn't know that there was any regulation in the city of North Ridgeville allowed for that separation. But I did give you I was the one that provided the survey, this one here. What I'm concerned about is we at some point intend on building on the property to the north. And what, you can see here that the driveway is not, on that drawing is indicative, that is not what's in the field. It's not, something's not right. But further, what I'm concerned about is if you look at the overhang here, it's almost like the structure now, the overhang is already over the property line. And that's a concern for us too. So even if you go out to the site, this whole area has been cleared.
And that's what I asked. The property pin, the driveway is on the pin.
Yeah, that's the pin. That's the property line right
I do have a question for you, sir. I was told that property to the north has a conservancy.
there. No, actually, that 1-point-something acres is uplands. The 1.13, we owned all the other land
So the
It was
one, the
Avalon.
front part is a conservancy?
No, none of that is. The 1.12 is not conserved. Everything behind it is. Basically, I lost 40-some acres to the Army Corps, but I did preserve this piece to build on, per our general development plan.
So this house is encroaching on buildable property?
Absolutely. Well, at least now from this drawing, we would have to have that survey to facilitate that answer 100%. But I think I'm just concerned that we have to respect the property lines that we have to work within. And this property line seems to be whoever decides to cross it, they can, and there's garbage in there now and stuff's thrown in there. And, you know, we'd like to avoid some of that kind of thing too.
And you have somebody clearing your property out?
Well, we want to clear our property. At this point, I think I'm just going to go ahead and clear it. But it is being cleared. It has been cleared by people since.
That
you know,
isn't you?
It isn't us. So,
Okay.
you know, I don't want to give anybody a hard time. You know, if people should be able to do what they want to do on their property. I want to do on my property what I want to do. And I feel it's a little inconvenient to be in this situation that I'm in right now.
Well, it was probably at one point in time one big farm and they split it, is what I'm guessing. I'm just guessing. But you have some very valid concerns, and that is part of the reason why we did ask the gentleman to come back, because we were so concerned. And especially Ms. Lieber was very concerned because of the aerial photos. It clearly, and still clearly shows that the house is.
Yeah, no, I would agree that the survey that we had done definitely shows that the home is not over the property line, other than this overhang is what we're noticing. But the house is very close to that property line.
It is, and the driveway is on your property.
It is. Well, it's definitely in the right of way, which is in front of the house that would normally be responsible of the homeowner to maintain and that type of thing.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to say?
No, I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much for your time. Anybody else want to speak on behalf of this matter?
Madam Chair, just to be clear though, when you make your deliberations and your vote, we're only looking at what's in front of us today, not past issues.
Oh, I understand.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we are going to take these into two separate votes. First vote is going to be for the variance for the height. So the chair is looking for a motion.
Motion to accept.
A second?
Second.
And the motion is to accept.
Kimball,
Yes.
Thibodeau,
Yes.
Masterson,
No.
motion fails.
Okay, I'm looking for a motion for the 2.2% variance for lot coverage. I'll make a motion to accept.
Second.
Kimball,
Yes.
Thibodeau,
Yes.
Masterson,
Yes.
motion carries.
Okay. Alrighty, we're gonna go to the next applicant. You can follow up with the building department tomorrow, okay, sir?
PPZ 2023-0203, North Ridgeville Family Dentistry, Ankar Gupta, DDS 34100, Center Ridge Road, PPN 07-0-017-129-071. Property owner, Ankar Gupta, DDS 35201 Emery Drive, Avon, Ohio 44011. Proposal consists of adding signage to the back of the building. Property is zoned B3 Highway Commercial. Requests, 1, a 52.5 square foot variance for building signs. Applicant shows 212.5 square feet. Code allows 160 square feet, section 1286.05C2. Note, building width is 80 feet.
Is there anybody here to speak on behalf of this matter? Would you please come to the podium so I can swear you in? Okay. Do you swear or affirm that the statements you are about to make before this Zoning and Building Board of Appeals for the City of North Ridgeville are true as you shall answer unto God or under the penalties of the law of perjury?
I do.
Okay, can you state your name?
Sure. My name is Ankar Gupta.
And your address, sir?
35201 Emery Drive in Avon, Ohio.
Okay, tell us a little bit about your application.
Sure. On Center Ridge Road at 34100, myself and the State Farm insurance agent, we co-own this property. At the front of the building, you'll see a sign for the State Farm Insurance, Christina Estes, and that's great. She has frontage and she has visibility. However, my dental office is easily the most high traffic entity in that building. However, if you notice at the front of the sign, at the front of the building, there's no evidence that a dental office exists. And that's fine because our entrance is through the back of the building, and that's perfectly fine with us. We actually ask our patients not to park at the front, to go around to the back of the building, and that's where they would enter our dental office. Actually, if you wouldn't mind just going to the back of the building, yeah, there we have it. When people come to the back of our building, it looks very much like the back of the building. I'm currently in the process with Kim Lieber to do a lot of upgrades to the back of the building, but this is my front entrance. I've been a dentist in the area for 18 years, and even though we've developed a really nice reputation, we have good patient flow, we have on a regular basis, probably daily, instances where patients have no idea where we are. They drive around, they come in and they're full of anxiety because they're late to their appointment. We would love to have the ability to put a large sign on the back of the building. However, that would infringe upon the maximum allowable frontage for signs, and that's why I'm currently asking for a variance.
Okay, you want to go back to?
To the
Yeah. We do record this.
Yes. Okay, no problem.
Okay. Does the administration have any comments in regards to this? Mr. Fursden? Ms. Lieber?
Thank you, Madam Chair. While the amount of square footage seems significant compared to the permitted amount of square footage, it's a unique situation where there's access to both the front and the back of the building, and you'll never see all the signs at the same time. So I think it's reasonable for what the business is trying to achieve to ensure that their patients know where they're going for wayfinding.
Well,
Thank you.
when I was looking at the properties, it took me a really long time to find you.
Yeah, it always is. Yeah.
I drove around a lot. So your hardship is that you are extremely difficult to find.
Yeah, we are.
And your entrance is off of Emerald, and your entrance is a very long driveway. So your practical difficulty is where you're located. And I'm assuming that when whatever gets determined here, the temporary signs will be taken down?
The temporary signs, are you talking about this?
The ones in the front?
On the west end, west side.
Would you mind going back to the previous slide?
This?
Nope. That one.
Oh, okay, yes. This sign right over here, this was within our variance limitations, and so we threw it up there.
Okay.
But absolutely, this sign I'm not in love with that sign.
Okay. I just wanted to be clear.
I have no hesitation to take that sign down.
Okay. Does anybody on the board have any questions, comments, or concerns?
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
just like to add that there is other businesses in there. I know they got a new business there that also brings in some traffic. So
Yes.
labeling yourself as a dental office would greatly improve where people need to go back there.
It would. We do have other tenants. However, as the building owner, it would be nice to have a little bit more prominence for my office. We actually just recently had a high school group labeled Not Able, which is it's a wonderful organization. And
Now I know where they are.
now you know where they are. Yeah, and
I couldn't figure
while
it
I'm
out.
not asking for a larger sign for them. It'll make it easier for people to find it because they'll say, "Look for the big dental office sign."
Sean?
I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody in the audience want to comment on this matter?
Thank you.
Hearing none, I will make a motion to accept.
Second?
Will you please call roll?
Kimball,
Yes.
Thibodeau,
Yes.
Masterson,
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good day, sir.
Thank you so much.
Ready for the third one? Ready?
Sorry.
Third applicant, PPZ 2023-0206, ARE Properties 100 LLC, Joe Spooner, 5531 Wallace Boulevard, PPN 07-00-105-041, also 07-00-018-105-123, and 07-00-018-105-042. Applicant AJ Home Upgrades LLC, 5380 Oberlin Avenue, Lorraine, Ohio, 44053. Proposal consists of a home addition. Property is zoned RS1, Special Residence District Number 1. Requests: Number 1, a 1-foot 9-inch variance for separation of a detached private garage with other buildings located on the same lot. Code requires 10 feet. Applicant shows 8 feet 3 inches. Section 1294.03A.
Is there anybody here to speak on behalf of this? Okay, you want to come up front so I can swear you in? Okay. Do you swear or affirm that the statements you are about to make before this zoning and building board of appeals for the city of North Ridgeville are true as you shall answer unto God or under the penalties of the law of perjury?
I do.
And your name and address?
Jason Bass, 5380 Oberlin Avenue, Lorraine, Ohio. I am the owner and operator of AJ Home Upgrades.
Okay, why don't you tell us a little bit about your application?
So we, in partnership with Joe Spooner, who's been picking up some properties and neighborhoods, trying to get them fixed up, came across this one. I guess he's owned it for a while. Nobody wanted to touch it. We came in to take a look at it. I came up with an idea that we can make it worth it for everybody if we could not only remodel the home but add the addition onto it. We contacted a local resident, Mr. Michael Yates, who did the architectural design and set it up. Unbeknownst to me, there is this 10 feet of requirement between the structures, and we've already, before knowing about this, we had submitted everything. Mr. Spooner had got approved from his loan company for the amount that we said this would be worth. And in my personal opinion and the residents around, I think it's more important that we have this house. I don't know if you have pictures of it, but it's literally falling apart, and I'm doing everything in my power at the moment to hold it up and keep it together. The hardship is it would cost a lot of time and money to go and redo this over 1 foot 7 inches, whatever it is that this difference is. And it's not obstructing anything. It's not stopping anybody from getting in anywhere. If you had a riding mower, you could ride it through it. If you had to put a car in your backyard, I guess you could still fit it through there. I don't know really what the stipulation for that distance is, but we're not inhibiting anything at the moment, and it would just cost a lot of time and money, and maybe the quality of the structure that is already falling apart while we are waiting to get in there and get this thing started.
Okay, I have a question for Mr. Burson. I went out to the property, and the property has a condemned sign on it. Property's condemned?
The building department, yes, we didn't want anybody to occupy it until it was restored.
Okay, so whatever he does, because I did walk inside of it.
It's all.
It's awful. So is the garage. So anything he does, because clearly it's uninhabitable, is the reason why you put the why you condemned it. I'm not insulting your property.
It's not my property, so you can say whatever you want about it.
I don't understand why you're trying to keep it doesn't look to me as if there's enough there to save or salvage.
That's their decision.
That's,
Yes, that's their
that is
cost
their
factor,
decision.
yes.
Yeah, I to be honest, I did speak with Joe about maybe just knocking it down and rebuilding. Just the cost difference of what we are able to do Tuesday. They had already put some money into shoring up the foundation, I guess, previous to us coming along. I don't really know a lot of things as far as what that was. I just came up with the thing, the proposal that we have to, we have to take some of this down. I mean, we're keeping a very minimal portion of the whole roof's coming off. There's some good structure on the north wall and east or west wall. That's still good, and no reason to really have to take it down. So we're just kind of keeping what's good and going from there, trying to keep some of the costs down for them, as well as just not having a house that's disgusting and falling apart sitting in there as a city.
If the house were a lot more habitable, it would make a lot more sense to grant the variance. You're pretty much in. The hardship is, I don't understand what the hardship is. 8 foot 3 inches versus 10 foot.
It's at this point in time with the owner already having taken the loan out, and we are beholden to what we have to come in and have an architect come in and redo drawings for us to be able to use them to resubmit for a permit. The length of time and the cost that is to the customer while this house continues to send the property falling apart, I feel is way more. It is super substantial compared to, shortening this distance 1 foot 7 inches that we didn't know existed, which I guess could be on us and the architect. I don't really know.
So one of the things we're not allowed to consider is monetary issues.
I understand I'm not saying it's a monetary issue. It's the length of time while the structure sits and we can't do anything with it because we're waiting for the permits to get approved. The longer that the structure sits there without me getting to reinforce it, you are looking at, potentials for things to fall apart. There are kids that play in that neighborhood. I see them all the time. Every time I'm constantly going over there and taking measurements, talking with people about things. I've had to tell numerous kids to, go, stay away from here or whatever. It's not safe.
Mr. Furston, is the building permit being held up by the zoning request?
Yes.
Okay.
All we want to do is get in there and take care of the property and get it better. My wife grew up in North Ridgeville. I lived here for many years. I like working in the city. And for us, it's a fun project. I think if we can get it taken care of, it's going to greatly.
But it is your responsibility to make the property safe.
Yes, 100%. I
Okay.
really do want to be
No,
safe.
even in the process of it being under construction, that is your responsibility. Okay. Anybody else have any other comments, questions, concerns?
I do have one question,
Sure.
if I could, ma'am. Clearly, everything needs a lot of work there.
Yeah.
And I have full confidence that you have the ability to do that and make it safe. The garage is really what's in question. If the garage wasn't there, you wouldn't even need to be here this evening. And in my opinion, I'm guessing that garage isn't going to be there for decades to come. So would it be possible, and this is a question for the administration, to have something in place where if that garage was torn down and rebuilt, that it would have to be built 2 feet further back to be code compliant?
I don't think that's an unreasonable condition. Apparently, is the garage in better shape than the house? It's
It
not
is.
falling down?
It needs a new garage door and probably a roof, but it's structurally.
The garage is lower than the driveway. The floor of the garage is lower than the driveway.
Even if the garage was
Yeah.
stays for another 20 years, fine, whatever. You touch it up and you even rip up the concrete and re-pour on your driveway. Eventually, at some point, I would assume that the garage is either going to be torn down to be and have an attached garage built on the house, or a larger garage is going to be built in its place. At that point in time, they would have to be code compliant and build it 10 feet off the structure. Would that be correct? Or by us granting the variance tonight, could they still
if they take it-
rebuild in the 8 feet off?
If they rebuild, if they just expand it.
So we,
I'm just looking to be
And it's very-
specific, so we don't have it, like we had in our first case,
Right.
where supposedly per the minutes, we weren't specific
And
enough. And
I've-
someone specifically asked for a carport, and we approved that.
Right.
But
Mr.
yet it comes
Furston?
back to bite us years later. So how can we be specific enough tonight to allow this? Because I think this gentleman wants to fix an eyesore in the city. I'm all for that. And right now, it is clearly a safety concern. I'm amazed that, I know kids are playing it there. Let's just be honest. They're going to. I mean, there's. So the quicker that this project can get built and fixed, I think is a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, Mr.
I'm just
Kimball,
trying to think of
I
something in the
appreciate
future.
your thought, and it's a good idea, and it's reasonable that if it's rebuilt, then rebuild it so that it's not, so that there is enough separation. Very hard to enforce. We're talking years down the road, somebody else will own it by then.
Mr. Furston, did you have a comment?
Only I was thinking if they demoed the existing garage and they built new, I would suspect that somebody in the future would enforce that it has to meet that separation unless the ordinance is changed.
Madam Chair, I think if you make an explicit condition within your motion if you're potentially approving a variance, if you were to make such a motion that the variance is approved, but only for the existing structures on the property, and that if the garage were to be demolished in the future, any new garage would have to meet whatever spacing is required by the code. If that's documented in your motion, it will turn up attached to the address at a future date when, if and when a permit's pulled. So I would suggest that approach if that's the pleasure of the board.
Mr. Furston, one more question, and I'm sorry to keep bothering you. If we approve the variance as it is, and the garage falls down and he has to build a new one, would he have to make it 10 feet off the existing, if the variance was approved for the house, would you allow the garage to go in?
At the present location,
Would they be allowed to rebuild on the site that it's at, or would they have to relocate it?
I would defer to the law department. I'd like to see them take and set it at the 10-foot.
Okay. So we have a question.
Yes.
Madam
My
Chair,
question is, yes,
I definitively, if it is the structure is demolished, it has to follow the ordinance when it's rebuilt.
Yes.
That would
If-
make sense.
Lots of things like that.
Kim?
And in all reality, if
Once it's
You know,
demolished,
say
the
it
variance
did-
goes away.
Well, no, the variance doesn't go away when it's demolished. It's
That's what
just that
she's
the new
saying.
structure has to, the
That's-
variance
he's
is
correct.
so it can be close to the structure that's there. If that structure goes away and they want to build something new, then it has to follow all the current ordinance at the time. So this, if you give them a variance for the 1 feet 9 inches, I think it is, it is from the existing structure, the existing garage. If that existing garage is demolished and goes away, then to rebuild, you have to follow the ordinances at the time.
Ms. Lieber, do you agree, or do you have concerns like I do?
I feel if you incorporate some language in your motion, I would just feel better that our future selves will be less confused about what the intent of the board is. So,
Mr. Furston, what's your input?
Either way, again, when that garage comes down, I doubt very much that I'm with the city, but hopefully my predecessor would feel the same way, put it at the 10-foot. But if you clearly put the language in your motion, we put that in the file records so that it's noted as a future reference, and then there's no question that it would be built 10 foot away from the house.
Do you have any problem with us adding a condition to the
No.
variance?
It wouldn't affect me either way, but it makes sense that if that structure ever did come down, that a new one would have to follow the ordinance. I mean, we're getting a variance just because we're doing change now, but, so I have no issues.
Okay.
I know the homeowner has no issue.
Now, the condition can only solidify. It won't, it won't harm.
Okay.
It will do no harm if it's there.
Does anybody in the audience want to speak on behalf of this matter? Okay, do you want to make the motion?
I'll attempt. I would make a motion to approve that with any future structure change to the existing garage, that it would have to be made to our ordinances at the time.
Check the language on that. He said structures. He didn't say remove the garage.
Oh, good point.
Any changes to the garage.
But you should really say if the garage is demolished and a new one is built. Because what if they want to do some modification to the garage and now you're telling them they can't?
Well, I think that is part of it.
But I would feel better if you would make it clear that it's demolished, that when it's rebuilt, it has to comply with that setback requirement.
But if they say it hypothetically, and I know we're kind of splitting hairs, we're all on the same page. We want to see this house
We're all trying to get it
fixed
so
and
to
built
stand
and
up.
done. But hypothetically, a tornado comes through. House is in or the barn's in Avon, but the foundation is still there. Then they put it back up. Or if they wanted to make it into a two-car garage, at that point they're adding more foundation and changing things a lot. At that point, I would think if you're doing anything to the structure from a building standpoint, not roofing, not siding, you're actually changing the structure of the garage. At that point, it should be code compliant.
So any
ordinance
alteration or
compliant.
demolition?
What happens if something happens and they get a termite infestation and now they have to replace the garage door header? You're not going to allow them to do that?
That's a good point.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
Not trying to be problematic.
perhaps if you put language there, if any changes to the footprint of the garage is done, maybe that would solve the problem.
It's a great idea.
Great idea.
I'm-
Do we
I'm
want to
just trying
restate
make it
our
clear for
our
future
motion?
people that they can interpret this correctly.
Keep it simple.
Then I will amend my motion of approving to still approve the variance, but with the stipulation that if any footprint of the garage is altered, at that point, they would have to be compliant with our ordinances.
Okay, I second. Will the clerk please take roll?
Kimball,
Yes.
Thibodeau,
Yes.
Masterson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You have a great day, okay? Will the clerk please call the final applicant?
PPZ 2023-0208, Joe Boucher, 7319 Maddock Road, PPN 07-00-027-101-002. Proposal consists of extending existing fence. Property is zoned R1 Residence District. Requests a 1.5-foot variance for height of a fence in a residential district. Code permits 6 feet. Applicant shows 7.5 feet. Section 1294.01 H2A. Chief Building Officials comments. 1294.01 H2A. Fences in residential districts shall be a maximum 6 foot in height in the side and rear property. Applicant added a 1.5 foot of fence on top of existing 6 foot high fence requiring 1.5 foot variance. BZA approval required.
Would the applicant please come to the podium? If you're both going to speak on behalf, do you both want to be sworn in? It's your call. If you just want him to speak, that's also fine too. Okay. Do you swear or affirm that the statements you are about to make before the Zoning and Building Board of Appeals for the City of North Ridgeville are true as you shall answer unto God or under the penalties of the law of perjury?
Yes.
And could you please state your name and address for the
Joe
record?
Busher, 7319 Maddock Road, North Ridgeville.
Okay, could you give us a little bit of an explanation of your application, sir?
I added 18 inches of decorative lattice to 64 feet of my fence. I was under the understanding that I was in light industrial, that I could have an 8-foot fence.
Okay, that's right.
So the work's already been done, and I wasn't aware until the city came and knocked on my door and said I wasn't supposed to add that or needed to apply for a variance.
Okay. So why is it that you need an 8-foot fence on the side of your property?
Next door has a driveway that runs the full length of the property to the back of the barn, and we were going to put the 8-foot fence up to keep dust and traffic noise down. And the cost at the time of a 8-foot fence was extremely high. So I thought over time I could add more to the fence. I was never told that it was a residential area. The fence company even said they were gonna apply for an 8-foot fence for me until we decided the cost was too high for the 8-foot. I was never told that it was anything otherwise.
Does the administration have any comments? Is this property zoned light industrial?
I believe it's zoned R1 Residence District, but there are some properties elsewhere on Maddock that are zoned not residential, but this one's zoned residential.
Even if the property were zoned an I zone, because there's a residential use on it, it's still considered a residential district in the eyes of the city zoning code.
Okay, so that's what I was looking for clarification, because it is a residential structure, okay, rules apply. Do any of the board members have any questions in regards to this? Comments, concerns?
I have a couple questions if I could.
Sure.
So, Mr. Busher, you had a fence contractor come in and perform the work, is that correct?
Yes.
So I believe we have a homeowner here that was doing his best to try and, fulfill what's allowed in the city versus what's not, and probably had a contractor lead him the wrong way, which is no fault of his own. And there is, if you look specifically at the house to the south, a large structure in the very rear with a driveway going right next to Mr. Busher's fence. I could see why there would be a need for a little additional fence height. I believe it is, even though we have other structures around the city, that is pretty extreme, that it goes the entire length of his property line. So I can see why he would want to do something like that. Seems to make sense to me.
Yep, I walked the property, it is a unique property. The back of the residence as well, the way it's built, it's all glass on the back, pretty much. There's a lot of windows and glass on the back. So I could see them seeing lights and stuff from the driveway to the south coming in. And also some of the dust and stuff like that. Also, the house to the south, the way it's set up, just the way it's set up, is their porch on the back is set up pretty high. So it's actually, it's hard to
The house
exactly.
is high.
The house is higher and the porch is higher.
Because of that.
Pretty much the porch is almost the height of the actual original 6-foot fence. So it's kind of a unique property.
Are there anybody in the audience that wants to speak on behalf of this? You want to come on up front and we'll swear you in? Hi. Do you swear or affirm that the statements you're about to make before this zoning and building board of appeals for the city of North Ridgeville are true as you shall answer unto God or under the penalties of the law of perjury?
I do.
And I need you to state your name and address for the record.
My name is Robert A. Titenberg. I live at 7341 Maddock Road, North Ridgeville. It's the property to the south.
Okay. What would you like to add?
The 6-foot fence rule was always there for residential. When they put the 6-foot fence up, we lost a lot of the fields that we saw there. It's the only fence in that entire neighborhood. I've been there since 2008. I brought pictures, unfortunately, I could not print them out. It is not a gravel driveway that creates dust migration. In fact, I took pictures today. It's mostly grass. It's very light use that we go back. I have a golf cart that we travel back and forth on that. Most of the time we park up front on the main driveway, and 2 blocks, always that way. So I got a couple of notes because I reviewed what he had thought about. So the first thing that he mentioned, of course, was the gravel driveway. The second, the construction of the lattice work was not done by a professional. It's an addition to 64 feet of a 350-foot long fence. So it's just a little tiny addition. I don't know if he's going to extend that the entire length. There's no traffic lights at night there. I'm in construction. I'm up at 4:30 in the morning. I'm not driving back there too late at night. Maybe on the weekends. We try to be courteous to all our neighbors. So I've got that. My back porch, a deck, it's at 32 inches above grade. Did that years ago. When they say it's a 6-foot height, it is not a 6-foot height. If you had the railing, it's the see-through railing. And I took pictures from the deck tonight. Again, I didn't print them for you. Couldn't. You still can't see into Joe's property. There's no intrusion into it. I can't see it. I could see maybe the top of his car. The second thing I don't know if it's on here or if this is a part of this issue, is the second structure he built. That's a shade structure or something near the garden. That's over the fence as well. I do have pictures downloaded, but I don't know how to get them to you.
Okay.
So I don't see the hardship that's here. We don't have much relations with our neighbors. I don't see a practical hardship to put this on. It is not an attractive addition, and the lattice is on the wrong side as well. It should be facing me, the decorative side.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Furzin, if we were to agree to the decorative lattice on top of a 6-foot fence, it does have to meet building code requirements, right? Are there any?
There's no building code requirements on building fences. It would have to be structurally sound because we don't want it to blow off in high wind and we don't want it to fall over. But that's about the extent of what the code would regulate on a fence.
Does it also, in regards to, and I'm just asking for clarification, is any addition to, okay, so the fence is the fence. And the pretty side always has to go to the neighbors regardless. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that. And then, Neil, you did walk the whole property. I just pulled up in front of their house. I didn't get out of the car at
Yes,
this house.
I did walk. Just to clarify, you said your deck's 32 inches off. The railing's another 3 foot. So if you're standing there, you're as tall as the fence.
You're 3 foot up.
Yeah.
I'm 6 foot. I took a picture from it.
Yeah.
Welcome to show the board.
Yeah.
You see the fence.
Um,
You're far enough distance away.
If you're gonna speak, I need you to come to the podium.
I mean, I could, again, sorry.
No, I'm sorry. It's just we're on,
No, I understand. I should have come
Okay.
up. Should have been standing when I addressed you anyways. But no, if you stand on, I mean, I'm 6'4". Well, I've shrunk a little bit now, but if you stand on my deck, the distance between where my deck is and the fence, you can't see over that. I don't see.
It wasn't the hardship I was talking about. It was just, you questioned what I said. So I'm just verifying.
Oh, yeah.
That
and
if you
the
are
way it was
standing on your
written-
deck,
the way
you're
it
as
was
tall as
written
the
on
fence.
On the application said it was 6 foot above grade.
Yeah.
But the deck is not 6 foot above grade. It's 32 inches above grade.
and also too, just to expand on what Neil said, you also stated that the construction of the fence stopped your view of fields.
Yes.
Okay, so it's perspective.
Yeah.
So you have the perspective that you're no longer allowed to see that, and there's the perspective of what can be seen from a deck. But that's not anything that we can consider. What we can consider is practical difficulty.
Right.
And that is what we're gonna address. So.
Do I need to submit pictures for your view? I mean, I guess if you physically saw it.
I was actually at the property
Okay.
on Saturday? Saturday. I forgot. I called him on the telephone, so I'm pretty sure it was Saturday. So Saturday, I was out Saturday around 6 o'clock, 6:30. I was in the neighborhood, so I did pull up. I have an orange car, so I was at the property.
Okay.
So, and the property does go down lower. I do have some questions of Mr.
Thank you.
Busher. Hi. Are you planning on adding the decorative lattice to the entire structure?
No,
So you're just looking to build it for a specific portion?
yeah, just the back section between the back of my house and well, I'm not even going to the full length to the barn, which is 80 feet.
So you're looking at adding lattice between,
It's already been added. It's a 64-foot section.
you do understand that the pretty side has to go on the other side, right? It has to face the neighbors. Okay. So you're not asking for a variance the entire length?
No.
You're just asking for a variance between the rear of the house to the front of the garage?
Yes.
Any other discussion from the board?
I'm good.
Anybody else want to speak on behalf of this? Sure, you can come back on up. And then I'll let you speak, okay? Sorry about that.
Well, so if the variance is requesting the height of the fence, I didn't see where we get into those specifics where we did with the first case. I'm only adding the 64 feet. I'm not adding, or they're not adding, to the entire length of the fence, and it's not being done by the professional. It should have been an 8-foot fence, if that was allowed. That would have been the variance. We're not asking for a variance here of the entire length of this fence. He's asking for a little tiny DIY lattice work that he did.
Well, thank you for your comments, I appreciate you. You want to come up and I'll swear you in? Hi. Do you swear or affirm that the statements you are about to make before the Zoning and Building Board of Appeals for the City of North Ridgeville are true as you shall answer unto God or under the penalties of the law of perjury?
Yes.
And your name
Christine Kogan.
and your address, dear?
I live with Joe.
Okay.
You most certainly have no privacy in the backyard without that little bit on top. We did put the good side on theirs, and it's very well built with a lot of screws holding it very securely to the top of the fence.
We're looking more at practical difficulties, and while I understand neighbors not getting along is never a comfortable situation, this is not the first time we've had large fences between two neighbors.
Right.
Okay, so I'm looking at practical difficulty. Why do you need that between those two structures?
Because I have literally no privacy. What they're saying, that their deck is 34 inches tall, is a lie, because they stand there and look right over top of the fence at me. I'm training my puppy to go potty, and I have them looking right at me all the time. I mean, I go out in my pajamas sometimes. It's a puppy. I don't want them looking at me. I already have their big bright light shining right on me, so this at least gives me a little privacy in my backyard.
So you're looking for more the dust, the light?
The
that kind of
dust, the
stuff.
light, and some privacy. That's all I ask.
Okay, is there anything else, dear?
I think that's it.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Anybody on the administration want to comment? Cliff? Mr. Winkle?
Madam Chair, over the years I've been on council, I've had different neighbor relation questions and issues, and, I've always just personally said, what does the ordinance say? And let's enforce what it says. That's always the best way to go about it. So whatever your interpretation of that is what I would recommend.
Can I make a comment?
Yes, please.
To add on to what Cliff had, or Mr. Winkle had just said, if anyone's been on a board for any length of time, neighbor relations always come up. And there is a saying that fences make for good neighbors. And it's pretty obvious that both sides, you know, you're at least not sitting next to each other smiling together. So, I mean, it's clear that there's something there, and I firsthand can understand that. You know, from the construction standpoint, like I had mentioned earlier, the fence was built by a contractor to begin with, but there is nothing that says you can't do work on your own fence. So I'm not sure if the pretty side faces your home or their home or not. That really doesn't matter so much for what we're looking at in this case. It's specifically a case-by-case basis because every application is unique to its own right. We have had, you know, I've been on this board over 19 years, and there's been a number of times that we've had fencing issues between neighbors come up. And privacy really doesn't go a long way. We have to have something to hang our hat on. And even though I completely understand what you're getting at, having a driveway that goes the whole length is something more to consider than so much privacy, because both homes were there when you guys moved in. I doubt both parties are the original owners. So that we really can't take into consideration the privacy aspect. But the elevation of the deck, that can kind of be part of it, even though there's a question of how high it is or not. There's other factors involved that need to be considered than just, you know, the privacy side of it. So, and Mr. Busher did clarify that he is looking for specifically just the 64 feet that's already completed and not looking to go the entire distance. So maybe potentially this 64 feet will make for good neighbors. We'll see what the future brings, but I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome, sir. I'm just talking out loud, but any variance that we grant, it grows regardless of when this fence falls down, the next one will be able to build.
For that 64-foot stretch, yes.
Okay. I am going to make a motion that we approve the 18-inch decorative lattice between the house and the garage, and I'm looking for a second.
I will second that motion.
Kimball,
Yes.
Thibodeau,
Yes.
Masterson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Is there anything else that we need to discuss? Hearing none, I adjourn this meeting. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, no. You wanted to come in front of the board?
I was told to be at the meeting tonight for a variance I asked for. For a shed. I applied over a month ago.
This isn't a BZBA.
This is a building permit application, sir.
There's another one behind it,
Have a good evening.
a variance. Can I see that?
Sure.
paperwork, please?
Just excuse me one second. I'm gonna adjourn the meeting. Is that okay? I adjourn the